I thought I was clever. I thought I was untouchable. But I was wrong. So very, painfully wrong. That day, I came home with a smile plastered across my face, a smile I thought no one would question. It wasn't just any smile, either. It was the kind of smile that comes when you feel powerful, when you think you've gotten away with something forbidden. A secret. A lie. A betrayal. I called it a lunch date. That's how I justified it in my mind. Just lunch. Just food and laughter and harmless conversation. But I knew, deep down, that it was more than lunch. It was stolen hours with Ethan, the man who wasn't my husband. The man who made me feel seen, desired, and exciting again. As I pushed open the front door of our home, the scent of Daniel's coffee still lingered in the air. The house was quiet, neat, just as he always kept it. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, each step echoing the confidence I shouldn't have had. I was humming, light-hearted, like a woman with nothing to hide. Daniel was in the living room, reading on the couch, his glasses slipping down the bridge of his nose. He looked up at me, and I caught his gaze for just a second. It was steady, calm, unreadable. I thought nothing of it. Why would I? He was Daniel, kind, hardworking, loyal Daniel. My husband of 8 years. The man who adored me with every fiber of his being. And yet, I betrayed him. I knew he didn't deserve it. I knew he wasn't cruel or neglectful. If anything, his greatest flaw was that he loved me too much, trusted me too deeply. He believed in me without question. That trust should have been my anchor. Instead, I treated it like a leash I wanted to break free from. That afternoon, I felt smug. I felt untouchable. I thought I was balancing two worlds, the safe, steady love of my husband and the thrilling, intoxicating temptation of another man. I thought I could have both without consequence. But what I didn't know was that the smile I wore that day, the one I thought was so innocent, was the very thing that would shatter my entire life. That smile wasn't just a mask. It was a confession I didn't realize I was making. And Daniel saw more in it than I ever imagined. I should have known. I should have seen the way his eyes lingered on me, not with suspicion, but with a kind of quiet knowing. If I had known what that smile truly meant, I never would have walked through that door. Because that was the last smile before everything crumbled. When I think back to how Daniel and I met, I can't help but feel a sting of shame. We were the kind of couple people envied. College sweethearts, inseparable from the very beginning. He was the boy who carried my books when my hands were full, the one who waited outside my dorm just to walk me to class in the rain. He had this quiet way of making me feel safe, like no matter how chaotic the world got, I'd always have a home in him. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. We married young, but back then, it felt like destiny. Those early years were full of laughter, late-night talks, and plans for the future. Daniel was steady, hardworking, and thoughtful. He always put me first, sometimes so much that I felt spoiled. He would drive across town just to bring me lunch at work, or stay up late helping me study when I was exhausted. For a while, life felt like a dream. But dreams have a way of turning into routines. And routines can start to feel like cages. As the years went on, the spark dulled. Not because Daniel stopped loving me, if anything, his love grew deeper. But it was the kind of love that became predictable. Wake up, kiss on the forehead, coffee on the counter, goodbye. Work, dinner, dishes, sleep. Over and over again. He was there, always there. And yet, I began to feel invisible, as though the woman he fell in love with had faded into the background. I know now that it wasn't Daniel's fault. He was doing what good husbands do, providing, protecting, loving. But at the time, I twisted it into something else. I told myself he didn't see me anymore. that I was more of a habit than a wife. And then came Ethan. Ethan wasn't extraordinary, not really. But he knew exactly what to say. We met through a mutual friend at work, and he had this charm, this effortless confidence that Daniel never had. He noticed things Daniel didn't, the way I changed my hairstyle, the color of my dress, even the perfume I wore. He made me feel like a woman again, not just a wife. Compliments slipped from his lips like honey, and I drank them in even though I knew they were poison. It's just lunch, I told myself. It's harmless. Just a little escape. But deep down, I knew better. Every time my phone buzzed with Ethan's name, my heart raced. I'd smile at the screen, even as guilt gnawed at me. Daniel noticed, of course. He wasn't blind. He'd catch me staring at my phone too long, my excuses too flimsy. But he never accused me. He never yelled or pried. His trust was his weakness. He believed in me, even when I didn't deserve it. And while he continued to love me quietly, I was already slipping away. The day it all started to unravel was a Tuesday. Just an ordinary Tuesday, at least to everyone else. But for me, it was the day I chose temptation over loyalty. Ethan had texted me in the morning, casual as ever, lunch today. Just us. My heart leapt in a way it hadn't in years. I told myself I shouldn't go, that Daniel would never forgive me if he knew. But within minutes, I was already picking out a dress that I knew Ethan liked, the one Daniel had barely noticed when I wore it the week before. Lunch turned into something more. Ethan leaned in close, his compliments whispered across the table like secrets. I laughed too loud, touched his arm too often. I knew it was wrong, every second of it, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in so long. Desired. Wanted. Seen. On the drive home, the guilt crept in. My mind spun with excuses. Maybe I'd say work ran late, or I met a friend. But then I stopped. Why bother? Daniel never questioned me. He trusted me completely. That was his strength, and his weakness. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I'd made my decision. No lies. No explanations. Just a smile. If I acted like nothing happened, nothing would. I walked in humming softly, a smile tugging at my lips. The air smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. Daniel's cologne lingered in the house. He was sitting in the living room, glasses perched low on his nose, a book open in his hands. When I pushed the door closed, he looked up at me. His eyes held mine for a second too long. Not angry. Not suspicious. Just quiet. Observant. Hey, I chirped, my voice too cheerful. How was your day? He didn't answer right away. Just studied me, his face unreadable. Then, almost too softly, he said, fine. I brushed it off, tossing my purse onto the counter and heading upstairs, humming louder than before. I told myself he was tired, distracted, maybe stressed from work. I told myself he didn't know. But that night, I felt the weight of his silence. Usually, Daniel would ask about my day, wrap his arms around me in bed, kiss me goodnight. But not that night. He lay beside me, facing the other way, his breathing steady but distant. I told myself it was nothing. Just one quiet night. Nothing had changed. But deep down, something in me twisted with unease. His silence felt heavier than any fight. And if I had known what Daniel already knew, I would have never walked through that door smiling. The days after that lunch date blurred into one long stretch of unease. On the surface, nothing had changed. Daniel still woke up early, made his coffee, went to work. He still took out the trash, folded laundry, fixed the squeaky cabinet door in the kitchen. But underneath all of that, something was different. It was in the way he looked at me, or rather, the way he didn't. His eyes no longer lingered on me with warmth. His smiles were faint, polite, like the kind you give a stranger. He still touched my shoulder when he walked past, but it felt mechanical, not tender. It was as if my husband had quietly stepped back into a place I couldn't reach. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. But every night when he slipped into bed, turned his back, and fell into silence, I felt it, this wall growing taller between us. And instead of feeling only guilt, I felt anger too. Why wasn't he asking me what was wrong? Why wasn't he fighting for me? A part of me wanted him to confront me, to yell, to demand answers. But he didn't. He just carried on with a distant, unsettling calm. Meanwhile, Ethan was growing restless. He wasn't content with just lunch anymore. His texts came more often, filled with hints and suggestions that made my stomach twist. When are we going to get some real time together? You deserve more than scraps of his attention. I knew it was wrong, I knew I was playing with fire, but somehow, Ethan's persistence fed into the cracks inside me. I felt pulled in two directions, guilt every time I looked at Daniel's face, and temptation every time Ethan's name flashed on my screen. The tension inside me built until one night, I came home later than usual. I expected to find Daniel in the living room with his book, or maybe already asleep upstairs. Instead, the house was eerily still. On the kitchen table sat a single folded piece of paper. I froze. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I reached for it, my hands trembling. The note was short. Just one line written in Daniel's steady handwriting, I know. Don't worry, you'll never see me angry. But you'll never see me the same again either. My stomach dropped. The room spun around me. My first thought was denial, maybe he didn't mean what I thought. Maybe it was about something else. But deep down, I knew. He knew. And his silence, his calm, suddenly made sense. He had known all along. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The note burned in my chest, heavier than anything I had ever carried. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered Daniel in the kitchen, my voice shaking. Daniel, what do you mean you know? Know what? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time in 8 years of marriage, I couldn't read him. His eyes weren't angry, or broken, or even sad. They were calm. Resolved. I saw your messages, he said evenly, his voice steady in a way that terrified me. And I saw you that day, walking in with that smile. My throat went dry. What smile? I whispered. He shook his head slowly. The smile that told me everything. You weren't just guilty. You were happy. You smiled because betraying me made you feel alive. That was the moment I realized I'd already lost you, before I even had a chance to fight. I collapsed into a chair, the air punched out of me. My instinct was to beg. To cry. To plead for him to yell at me, to slam a door, to call me every name in the book. Anything but this terrifying, gentle calm. Daniel, please, it was a mistake. Just once. I can stop. We can fix this, he cut me off with a shake of his head. No. You don't understand. This isn't about one mistake. I could forgive mistakes. I could even forgive weakness. But I can't forgive the smile. Because the smile meant you wanted it. It meant you enjoyed betraying me. And that's not something I can ever come back from. Tears blurred my vision. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away, not harshly, just final. That's when he told me the truth, the part that shattered me completely. I've already started moving out. I transferred some savings. I signed a lease on an apartment across town. I met with a lawyer. I didn't want to humiliate you, or make a scene. I just don't want to live in a lie anymore. My chest caved in. You've been planning this? He nodded. 4 weeks. From the moment I saw that smile. The words carved into me like a blade. It wasn't the affair itself that ended us, it was that fleeting moment when my betrayal showed on my face. My indifference. My arrogance. I thought he would hate me, scream at me, punish me. Instead, he chose dignity. He chose silence. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. Because in that moment, I realized I hadn't just lost my husband. I had lost the one man who loved me enough to walk away without destroying me, because I had already destroyed myself. I used to think silence was weakness. That if someone really loved you, they'd fight for you, scream, cry, beg, or throw things to show you mattered. But Daniel proved me wrong. His silence wasn't weakness. It was the strongest weapon he had, and it cut deeper than any words ever could. Because silence doesn't give you closure. It doesn't give you the satisfaction of defending yourself, or the chance to explain away your sins. Silence leaves you alone with your own guilt, your own memories replaying over and over until they poison you from the inside. Daniel didn't yell. He didn't ask why. He didn't even try to compete for my attention. He simply left. And the cruelest part. He didn't leave in anger, he left in dignity. That's what makes it hurt the most. I wanted him to yell. I wanted him to break something. I wanted to feel like maybe I was still worth fighting for. But instead, his calm voice and steady footsteps as he walked out told me the truth. I wasn't worth it anymore. I thought Ethan, the man I risked it all for, would be different. I thought he would fill that emptiness inside me, make me feel wanted in ways Daniel couldn't. But Ethan disappeared the moment things got serious. He was never mine. He was just a distraction. A fleeting thrill that vanished as quickly as it arrived. And when the dust settled, all I had left was the memory of Daniel. His love. His loyalty. His steady presence in my life that I had treated like it was nothing. I used to roll my eyes when he'd leave little notes in my bag, or text me to say he missed me during the day. I thought it was predictable. I thought it was boring. Now I realize it was love, the kind that doesn't come around twice. I regret the cheating, yes. But what haunts me most isn't the act itself, it's the smile. That stupid, careless smile I wore when I walked through the door after betraying him. That smile told him everything. It told him I wasn't just unfaithful, I was happy about it. And that's the image he carried with him when he chose to leave. Now, every time I look in the mirror, I see that same smile staring back at me. And every single day, I wish I could erase it. Because that smile cost me everything. So, let me ask you, if the person you loved betrayed you, but did it with a smile, would you forgive them? Or would you walk away in silence too?